Session for Fairhope City Council. Tonight we've got a pretty lengthy work session, I think, so we're going to go ahead and start. First item is an introduction of Bruce Larson artwork plan for the Arts Alley as a gift from the Fairhope Single Tax Colony to the City of Fairhope. Jessica, you up?
Yes, I'm going to introduce Lee Turner and Bruce Larson. To kind of give you a little overview of this, I know we've had Arts Alley on the brain the last little bit. Well, this is a little bit of an overview of what Fairhope Single Taxes is hoping to do for the city. So,
how's everybody today? A little bit different being on this side of the microphone. It's kind of cool.
Feels nice, right?
Jessica came to us in the city and asked, and the mayor asked about the Arts Alley project and the discuss the parking garage and the use of the parking garage, or in some cases, the lack of use of the parking garage. And of course, as y'all know, you have a grant for redoing that area back there, but the grant would not fund anything with art. And, we kind of understand that at Single Tax, we like to fund some art projects from time to time, but whenever you do, when you've got starving children and education issues and social issues, it's kind of like, well, how important is that? But then when you look back in time and see the Eiffel Tower, you can see where art really, does matter and kind of create senses of places and whatnot. And we do have to make sure that, we honor that. But basically, we discussed, a project with Bruce Larson to put some public art there, and really for a lot of different reasons, not just for any one particular reason of just kind of, gentrifying that area. One of the reasons, of course, is just gentrifying the area and having public art, obviously, just the one of the main reasons. Another big reason is that, we've always been concerned about the lack of use of the parking garage and that maybe it's not 100% utilized. And so one of the things that we want this piece of art to do, and Bruce will get into the details of it, is to try to draw people from the road to the parking garage. So one component of this piece of art will be out at the road, another component will be up on the top of the parking garage, and we'll be trying to visually pull those together to get people in the parking garage. Another aspect that we would like of this is just basically give downtown an experience. Now that you can order just about anything you want off of Amazon, who I just heard paid no taxes last year, that you can order everything off of Amazon. To get people to come to your downtown and support your downtown, you've got to have a real experience for them to have a reason to come there. This would be part of that and could really help with our advertising at downtown, because it'd be a real focal, Instagram, Facebook type of a focal aspect. And we're also would like to have a historical aspect on it. We're going to have the little barcode so that you can actually put your camera and it'll tell you, can you find this? And, this piece of, out of the artwork came from here and this piece came out here. It'll also tell you about the artwork. I won't surprise Bruce's work too much, but it'll be a seahorse, which is an indigenous seahorse to Mobile Bay, and it'll tell about that, kind of have an educational component and kind of an environmental component to it also. So what we propose to do is pay the city $125,000 and just give you all the money, since the city will actually own the art and the city owns, the projects. We've got a contract, and just basically we would give the city the money. Bruce would build the art, and y'all would pay, half the money when he starts and then half when it's completed. We have a committee suggested that would just kind of overlook it and work as a liaison between the artist and the city. At that point, I'll let Bruce come up, and he's got some PowerPoints showing what the artwork looks like, and he can answer any of the detailed questions that you have about this.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Bruce.
How are you? Yeah, we went through several different drawings, several different proposals with the single tax. We finally settled on the seahorse. I think it's a very elegant shape. It does have some history here, the dwarf seahorse. You still find them all over down Dolphin Island and that area, but you don't find them so much now up, up this far. Okay.
do we need to click? Sorry about that. Nope, that's not it. Bam.
Okay.
You're just gonna go right now.
Here's a black and white version of it. I've already started on the big seahorse, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of local metal in it. There's pieces from Mobile, predominantly farmers, pieces from Baldwin County, though, and mainly Fairhope. It would be a light up. The circles here you see are light up. They're lights for it. So at night, it's going to have a kind of an aura about it, and the shadows should be really spectacular. What did you push? Okay. So here's a nighttime version of it. We may add some more seaweed on there. I see the seaweed as it's beautiful. They're long, almost like Art Nouveau lines, but it's also support. That's going to be very strong pipe with solid steel running through it. So the more points of contact we have and the more triangulation we can do, the better. This is the piece for the top of the parking deck. And I think I'd probably start on this one first, because this one, if you Google Fairhope Seahorse, you'll see the one I did with John Resner down on the bay. And it's intentionally put there against this would be against the sunrise. So the sky actually becomes part of the photograph, part of the, and I'm hoping that people will start photographing this in dramatic sunrises, and then people will go look for it actually when they come to Fairhope. And this is the piece itself that I'm working on. I'm currently working on it. It has pieces from the Sanger Theater. It has pieces from farmers around me. It has World War II wrenches from Mobile, from the war effort. There's pieces from the Theater 98 seats in this. And earlier, those seats were actually from the first movie theater in Mobile. So there's this progression of metal that is handed down. And I like the texture of it. The one on this is going to be a more solid piece because the background is not as interesting. The negative spaces don't matter as much. The one on this parking deck will be, it'll have a heavier wind load. So it's going to be, the negative spaces are going to be more important for it, so the wind just blows right through it. And it'll be a little flatter than this. But once again, you only see it from one side or the other. I guess that's it, but I'm really excited. What? Oh, okay. Okay. Here's a few of my larger pieces. And if you see the bottom right here, the negative spaces on that seahorse are just as important as the positives. And it really shows how beautiful where we live is, and showing some art. So really the sky is just as important as the piece. I've done a lot of pieces up at the Daphne United States Sports Academy, and I just love steel. I love the history of it, really. I love the, some of this was used, it's been melted down over and over and over. Some of this metal was in the Civil War, some of it was, long before that. These are some of my smaller works, but they show my style.
You have to show the little mix
The what?
You have to show the little mix
Yeah, he's a nice guy. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm really excited about this, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. And if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
I got one quick question. So the picture that showed the horses with the lights, is that at the Church Street entrance, or is that at the
Yes, sir.
section? That's Church Street?
That's Church Street.
And dumb question, but I assume we've got the measurements are all base of the truck, delivery trucks can get back there, et cetera?
Yes.
Richard provided those to us.
Yes, we're going to go over and above that because there's an incline there.
Mhm.
And as you make that turn, you can't, it's going to increase that a little bit. So we're definitely going to be clear of that.
So the section street side, is there, what's going to be on that side?
There's a mural on that side, on Master Joe's building there.
Mhm.
It will direct you into the parking deck with a mural there to grab your eye.
Any other questions or comments? Bruce for Lee?
I will add one thing, Bruce.
Yes, sir.
Bruce, I think, covered it very well. I think one component that he mentioned about the lights, you could change colors during different seasons if you wanted, and kind of have that be a little added feature if there was a desire to do that. And one other thing that I don't think you can really see here is the three-dimensional aspect, not so much of the horse up on the parking garage, but when you're traveling north on Church Street, the way the sidewalk kind of kicks over, this will be out somewhat already. And, we'll try to get a few pieces of the seaweed that'll come out over the sidewalk and reach out, just so that, somebody sitting at the light down there at Church Street going north, they'll say, what in the world is that? And that's what we want. And then to kind of see it and then draw the attention to the parking garage. So, and then if this doesn't work and people still don't want to park in the parking garage, we know we don't need another parking garage in Fairhope. So we'll find out from that. And I wanted to mention Catherine King, one of our directors, is here in the audience today. So if you see her and have any
Hey, Ms. King.
questions later on, she's one of our directors today.
All right, perfect, thank you.
All right.
Well, appreciate y'all very much, and I always appreciate Fairhope Single Tax Column.
Thank you.
What
Thanks
y'all
for all
do
y'all
in
do.
town.
God bless you.
Appreciate it.
Yes,
Thanks,
you,
Lee.
Bruce. Thank you, Jessica. Let's see, the next item up is item 2 on the work session. This is a discussion of internal purchasing policy with plans to propose a revision. Mayor and Kim, I think it's just y'all or Mayor?
I'm going to start out, and then I'll let Kim get up, and we'll open for discussion. This is something that I'm bringing before the council to discuss about our internal purchasing policy. Most of you know that we have had this policy in place for a couple years now, and probably some of it is being prompted just by today's, the environment we're in today, and how quickly we're having to make purchases. The only major changes that you will see on that purchasing policy is if we have budgeted items that are at the bid amount, which is $15,000 or $50,000, that if they are already in the budget that is adopted by the council, that as long as they're under budget or at budget, that we're able to move forward with those. And that would be if they're on the state bid or if they are on a buying group. We do know that the buying group sometimes that, we can get things cheaper, so we know we're going to have to spot check that. That's where we're asking you to place your trust in the fact that we know things that, we know what things cost, that we know that we have to, do our due diligence on those. But those are, that's not uncommon in other municipalities. It's another reason why on the 3 work sessions leading up to adopting the budget that I went ahead and put the budget on there, because I know that you're going to want to spend more time looking at those capital purchases and making sure you're able to ask all the questions that you need, and we don't rush that process. The other thing that you will notice on there is a section that is cited from the Alabama Code about the utilities and things that they can purchase that is basically part of their inventory or things that they're going to use in their normal operations. That section is also cited there. And then the other thing that you will see is at the top, actually, so I guess there's 3 at the top, you will see where typically if there's something for $5,000 and that it's not budgeted, that we're able to purchase it. But for the utilities, I'm asking for $10,000. And that's because there's not much you can purchase any utility at this given point in time if it's something that you really need that's going to be under $10,000. I think we've been to the council several times the past couple months, and it's been things that are ranging from like $5,100 to $7,500. Things that weren't budgeted but that needed to be purchased. It's part of normal everyday operations. And typically, we'll have the budget for those, but it's just something because of our internal policies that we're having to come before the council. And right now, today is a good example. We have to purchase transformers. We sent out to 4 vendors asking for quotes. We got no quotes back from several. We got 1 quote back from somebody. He called Conrad probably about an hour after he got the quote. He said, "Hey, I have somebody else needing those transformers. Are you going to buy them?" And we're like, yeah, we need them.
2 weeks. to
We
get
need
it
them.
to council.
Yeah, so we really couldn't wait 2 weeks. Thankfully, I was able to make some calls and we were able to get those on the agenda. But those are the kind of things that we're up against right now. And those transformers, in particular, 3 of them are going, to projects that they're aid to construction. There's only 1 of them that are going in our inventory. So again, these are the, today, in today's times, this is just kind of what we're facing.
All right. Council, do y'all want to?
I was going to say, I also have Clint Stedham here from our purchasing department to kind of give you a little bit of background on some, especially the inventory items for utilities, to talk about what he's seeing. I mean, there are several times where it's cost us like $10,000 to $12,000 more just to buy something because we've had to wait. So I asked him to come tonight and give you some of his firsthand experience that he's seeing in the warehouse.
That would be great. Evening, Clint.
Just as the mayor said, that sometimes we get quotes, and this is an extreme example, but I got a quote on some wire about a month or so ago. I asked for the quote at 2 o'clock. They told me the quote was good till 4 o'clock. And it's just, things are moving that direction. We had, this is actually an incident, and this is one that the mayor was talking about. We made a purchase on transformers, had all the quotes, and cut the purchase order, and within a few hours they sent back and said, well, the manufacturer, not the vendor, the manufacturer will not honor those. So we did make the purchase eventually. The original purchase order was cut for $42,400, and the purchase that we made for the same items, which happened to be the same vendor, we re-quoted everything. It was $51,089.13. So you've got $12,000 or so dollars. We got the same identical item and paid $12,000 more for it. Same thing happened just last week. Meters, gas meters. We have the total quote we worked up was like $111,000. And overnight, literally, it went to $125,000. The end result was that we bought $107,000, which you ought to approve, but we're going to get 850 meters. We stayed within that dollar figure, but now we have 800, and that was for a 10-day period.
We actually got 700.
Total.
Right, we had to go from 800.
We had to go from 800, that's right. The original quote was for 850, and we went there. But we lost 50 meters just by not, because we couldn't buy them quick enough. And as far as getting quotes, that's not an issue, particularly for the electrical, the gas, water, sewer. The way I've got everything set up now, all the major vendors, which I usually have at least 4, sometimes 7, when I send a quote out, I have it in a group. It goes to everyone at the same instance. Everybody's got it at the same time, and I'll get all those back. So as far as just picking a vendor and buying it, you don't have to worry about any of that because we're still quoting everything. It's just the time frame from the time that you've made a decision to make the purchase or the low price and the time you actually cut the purchase order is it either one of the 2 things. Either it's gone up or it doesn't, or they don't have the material. And in a couple instances, we paid more and had to wait longer. And I think all the supervisors in the utilities will tell you the same thing.
Well,
You got any questions?
yeah, I think, I know council's probably got some questions. To start with, I just wanted to say, I think that the financials are the most important responsibility that we have as council members. So we do take it seriously and don't intend to abdicate responsibility, but I do think that there's an opportunity to improve some efficiencies here, maybe make life a little bit easier for some of the department heads. And I certainly want to hear, Mayor, what kind of impact do you expect raising these limits to have? I know the council would need to be probably more in-depth review on the front end of the budget process, but I don't recall us at any point, an item that was budgeted and came in under budget, we would discuss it some more, but I don't recall us ever denying one of those. So what kind of improvement on timeframes would you see from raising these limits?
Well, and I think, again, the biggest thing is, having to sometimes wait that 2-week window to get things approved and then having to meet deadlines. I mean, Lisa's deadlines, she can tell you the past several months, we're running at the last minute. Y'all know by the add-ons that we've had, we're running at the last minute going, we need to get this added onto the agenda. In an effort to make sure we're following the proper procedure, we're spending more staff time doing that kind of stuff than we are taking care of the business that we need to take care of. The other thing is we're really not asking for different dollar limits other than for the utilities. General government basically is still going to be the same. We're still going to do the quoting. The only thing we're asking is when we do have things that are budgeted in the budget, they're under budget or at budget, that we're able to proceed with those purchases without having to come back to the council. That's going to save staff time. It's going to save council time. It's going to save, us time doing business. Y'all know how many times we brought trucks back and forth. And I know that y'all weren't real comfortable with the language in there, just saying, we could purchase up to this dollar amount. So, but again, there is going to have to be some trust on the council's part to know that we're doing our due diligence, that, myself, Kim, the superintendents are doing what we have to do. And I guess probably in the words of Mike Ford, if it doesn't work, what we do, we can always undo.
That was my thought too.
So, and that's the thing is, again, I think there will have to be a lot of time spent on the front end on the budget to make sure that, again, for those capital purchases, that you know what's in there, that you're comfortable with that maybe we go back and do quarterly revisits to the budget versus doing just a 6-month review. So I do think there's some other processes that we can change to make this more streamlined. But in the end, I do think that it will be more beneficial to the city, more beneficial to our staff, and just for efficiency and cost effectiveness.
Okay. Council members, I want to hear y'all's thoughts, and if you got any questions for the mayor or Clint, please.
I'll start.
Please ask.
Council President, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Clint. Good explanation for all of that. I do have several questions and concerns on the general government. If you increase that threshold somewhat, I don't have any problems with that. I would say that I would like to have seen in our package today the old ordinance and the proposed new ordinance. We don't have anything on our computer screen to look at right now.
I sent those out by email.
It was email, yeah. I just assumed it would be in the package. So but anyhow, I didn't bring my emails with me, so it's kind of hard to look at the today and what's being proposed. But that being said, one of my biggest concerns is if we say we're going to spend a lot of time on this during the budget, and the examples that Clint gave is that it's such a moving target, and if it comes in under budget, that it doesn't have to come back for council. How are you going to get any reasonable estimate at budget time if it's going to change so much by the time you have to purchase it? I could see a situation where the supervisors are forced to put in such inflated numbers in the budget to ensure that they come in on budget. So we're going to run into hundreds of instances of it still not meeting budget, I believe, and that's going to be a problem. What I worry about also is that the department budgets become inflated because they want to do less work in the future. Therefore, let's say they think something's going to cost $100,000, say, well, let's just put in $150 because we know the price is going to go up. And then they go out. It is going to require a lot of trust to adopt this because, and then I don't want to do away with our quoting, system. And right now, and I've waited a long time to bring this up, but I'm going to say it right now. When it's on state bid, we're supposed to get 3 quotes. And I think that we've seen 1 quote, maybe sometimes 2 quotes. We haven't been seeing 3 quotes. And I know that a lot of times you can't get 3 quotes. I know that. I know a lot of times purchasing department tries, but you can only receive 1 quote, and I get that, and that should be noted. But I want to be strict on the quoting process if we're going to reduce the amount of time that it takes to come to council. I don't have a problem with those decisions having to be made if they say the price is going to go up the next day. Because we'll tell you, all government's going to fall victim to the same thing that happens with student tuition. The reason student tuition goes up every year is because the government agrees to provide more money through student grants. And that's what drives up the cost of tuition. So if we lax our rules on quotes and other governments do, the vendors are going to know it. They're going to take advantage of us. They're going to name any price they want. And for the sake of getting something that day because we need it, we're gonna pay in a premium price. So I would say stick to as much as we can. Those policies are in there for a reason. A lot of those policies, in fact, most of these policies are legacy policies that were recommended by prior mayors. These are not necessarily council mandates. They were given to the council as suggestions by the mayor to make sure that there was a separation of powers between the legislative branch and the executive branch. And that's why there was sometimes a set of rules that may seem to be stringent and it may seem cumbersome, but they were put in there as kind of fire stops to make sure that the council, who's responsible for the budget and for the spending, was kept abreast of all the money that was being spent. And I get we are in a different time. I do. I hear you. I sympathize with that. And we have to be very nimble right now. But we just need to make sure that there's a balance of being able to get the best price, not being taken advantage of. But we also need to stick to that policy of even when it's on state bid, because as Mayor, you said in your opening comments, I appreciate you saying that, was state bid is not always the lowest price. And if we get in a habit of selecting that state bid item out of convenience, we are ultimately going to cost the citizens of Fairhope at times more money than we should. So,
and I think too, we probably have found that more with the buying groups than we have found with the state bid. State bid,
well,
you do
buying
see
groups,
that too,
state bid,
but
yeah.
buying groups are absolutely where you might see it, and so that's something we would definitely want to still check on pricing.
Yes, sir.
In this particular case, all these examples, not one was in a buying group or a state bid. They were all utility items that we had multiple quotes on. All of those items, either they were a manufacturer that we dealt with directly, which was American Meter for gas, and we have the water meters, the same thing. But all of those items were bid and had more than 3 quotes. And that's the case with the only on a buying group or a state bid. That was not the case with any of these examples.
Then I wouldn't have any problem with that.
It's not. That's not where the problem is. The problem is having utility items, consumables like the transformers. It was a matter of getting the transformers, and now the supply chain is just such a mess that it's a problem. And you have to find them. You get them, and when they're there, we're getting the same amount of quotes. That doesn't change. The whole gist of this is taking that 2 to 3 week period out. It wouldn't change anything as far as what I'm going to do. I'll get the quotes every time.
So for big items like utility items, I mean, how often is it that you don't know at least 2 weeks in advance that you need, for instance, 150 kVA 3-phase pad mount? I mean, is that something that just comes up every, it's a sudden thing? I mean, we can't plan that we need these big items at least more than 2 weeks in advance?
No, it's not the 2 weeks. It's the 2 week period that from the time you get the quote.
They're not going to hold it for you.
They're not going to hold it for you. What the problem is you'll get the quote. You may know 6 months in advance. Right. And on transformers particularly, Conrad can correct me if I'm not right about this, but by the time you go and you've got to get drawings on the transformers, then it's going to the manufacturing, the engineering. Right. It usually takes about 3 days. The whole quote, that part just before they get the quote, is probably better part of a week. Then you get holidays, weekends, however that falls. That could be another 10 days. And that's the quote from the manufacturer, like ERMCO or GE or whoever the manufacturer. Then it goes back to the vendor, and then the vendor sends us a quote.
How are you going to put in a reasonable estimate in the budget and still so that,
Now, in that particular case, what I do, when we get a budget, we'll go and like vehicles, I'll go call the vendor, we'll actually get quotes based on what it is right then, and I'll talk to the vendor and I say, what's your best guess of whatever it's gonna be? In the past, the vehicle's been somewhere between 2% and 7%, somewhere in there. So you kinda had an idea of that. Now, that usually does wind up being a state, but on other things, budget, you have to get the best price you have at the time and what they're getting quoted on. And it's volatile right now, and that's the problem.
I'm just saying a lot of this to make it efficient may not be as efficient. So don't get upset when you have to come back because all these quotes come back over budget.
Right. Well,
That's gonna happen a lot.
Well, I don't think that, I mean, my idea is that that's not gonna be the issue. The only issue is this time frame. I don't know that anyone would just overinflate the budget just to do that. I mean, we take those numbers, whatever we think that the market is at the time. Usually when it gets around budget time, the guys, all the supervisors will come see me. I'll start getting some numbers for them, or that we'll all work together and get numbers, and it's on your best estimate at the time. Not, as far as I know, we've never inflated things just to inflate.
I'm not saying you do. In fact, I don't think you do. But what I'm saying is if you change this such that something under budget doesn't have to go back to the council, naturally, people are going to want to do less work. Let's not deny it. They want to do less work. So they're going to say, all right, well, let's just add 10% to this cost so that 6 months later when that comes to the council, because we don't buy everything in the budget day one. It takes a year. 6, 9 months later, if you don't put enough pad in there with all this volatility, no matter, your best guess is going to, in many cases, be low. And then it's going to have to come back to council.
I will say, though, that I think time is the issue here, not so much the cost, to be honest. And I think time is the issue.
I'm just
It's
pointing
not the
out
cost.
things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Because when it happens, don't say, well, we need to change it again because we had too much work to do.
Yeah.
I'm not a real big fan of that.
Well, I don't think that's the case, but the.
So, I really don't have an example here. I'm like Jack, I would like to see the exact of what we have to what you guys, a comparison, and highlight the differences and the changes so I can really read the verbiage, because it's kind of convoluted right now of what we're looking for besides the change in procedure.
No, I can just give you some samples that y'all have gone through this year, is several vehicles being purchased that's coming off the state bid. I mean, on those green sheets, majority of them have been under budget. You've asked, when Jimmy sat over there, is looking through, are they under budget? It's just taking some of those off where we know they've been budgeted. It was budgeted for $29,000 and that vehicle came in at $25,000. Those, way they're gonna run those through is Clint's got the quote, department goes back to department, it's gonna go through a rec, and then if that rec comes to me, it goes to, it's gonna go to Island to double check it too, and then it's going to Mayor to check. Those will streamline, and that's stuff that comes off the state bid.
Yeah.
As the awarding authority, anything that is a bid award that you have to award, all that's gonna come to you. But if that vehicle was bid at 25, and we had a couple that was like $1,000 off, that's gonna come back to you. Because
$1,000 off which way? I got you.
So
Yeah,
it's
$1 off.
So, right, exactly. It's 1,000, they put in their budget 25,000, it's coming in at 26,000. That's gotta come back because they did not budget enough.
So I would still like to be a part of the play, if I'm on the team.
That's right.
It's kind of like, I don't want to get kicked off the team. So even if we were to reroute the play where the ball is going, I would still want to see that come through council somehow, some organized fashion, to where we get to see what they just did that day. And that way, there's another eye on what's going on, and we still get to look at it. You know what I mean? And somehow it comes through us.
I think what you're describing would be, and we talked about this several years ago, and we were talking about changing the ordinance. I think prior mayor wanted to raise the spending limit, and I think we may have, and I don't know if it was prior mayor, if it was Mayor Kent. We gave a little bit more of a cushion, but we said, all right, quarterly, we want a report of every expenditure of this amount.
Well-
In other words, we want to know what that discretionary spending was.
Yeah, and.
Because you can $9,999
To death, right.
the city to death.
Yeah,
You wouldn't, I'm just saying that's
Yeah,
what
and
you
even-
open yourself up to if you're not getting, if you're not having a report of what's been
Right,
spent.
and I don't know if I would want the report quarterly, because that seems a bulky. If you're gonna go through the process, somehow that process, even though you go ahead and make the decision, the process still flows through us, where we see it like you were doing already, except you're just going ahead and purchasing it, right? But we get to see the price.
Give you a list of purchase orders, what was purchased.
Boom. Summary, yeah, and that way, we're still in the loop, if we see something as a council that's, I trust, I'm just saying, I think it eases all minds.
Yeah, it says budget number, purchase price.
Simple.
Well, I mean, we can do a report to you for information purposes, that if you want to see anything
think
that's
that's fair.
that it's capital items, if that's, because mainly that's what you're seeing in these vehicles that are coming through, or equipment. I mean, anything that's over $5,000 is a capital, that's a piece of equipment, standalone piece of equipment. And when we're buying just from this, off the state bid, that's one the case. Now, if it's a contract, the contract dollar amounts are still the same. I'm just trying to think of copiers come off the state bid. That's still a contract that has to come through y'all. But really, it's looking at all the equipment that you're seeing that we're getting off the state bid. It's been awarded by the state. You're just acknowledging for us to purchase it. It's just trying to streamline that, that better. Currently, right now, anything that's over 7,500, that's been under the 15,000. The route that it's been going is the department heads, they've got their quotes, they put it in the system, the rec comes to me, goes to mayor. If anything over 5,000 comes to me automatically, but if it raises to the threshold of 7,500, mayor, she signs off on it. We're all looking through it. And believe me, she does question these things that come through, that she's looking like, where's this? So I'm just trying to be honest with y'all. And it's just trying to streamline that. And I mean, and I can be able to run a report off those GL codes, to give y'all, what we've spent. I mean, and I could show you on the financials, highlight some of those numbers too. But
In your
anyway.
example of the vehicles, though, on the state bid list, is that a question of time, or is that just streamlining it? I mean, if you don't order that vehicle in a timely manner, is it going to disappear? Is it?
Yes.
Let me let her answer the question.
Yes, it does. So what we happen is Clint they'll find those vehicles, but if we can't commit and have that purchase order, and we've had a couple this year that we've called Jimmy, they've got them on the lot. Green sheet was already done, meetings in 5 days, and we went ahead and submitted a commitment, just trying to hold those vehicles. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they would hold those vehicles. And we actually, last year, we bought some vehicles that had City of Auburn on it. It was on the receipt because City of Auburn didn't get in there in time, and we got their vehicles.
So you're saying
So-
right now, they do, like, if we don't commit, or we just say, we want you to hold that, they're not doing that?
No,
Because they're
we
hot
had-
tomatoes, they're
they-
hot potatoes right now.
That's right, that's
Everybody
right.
knows.
That's the world we're in now, but
Yeah.
like I said, it was this past summer, we got some vehicles that were City of Auburn's, that they were committed for City of Auburn, but City of Auburn did not get that PO. Our PO came in first, and we got them. Clint did his deal with them. So, and that was like 3 trucks. So it's the world we're in now of trying to get those vehicles.
But I think that, this phase of this period we're in, it will eventually pass, but to me, there's still some inefficiency and redundancy that we're doing that we could eliminate, which would save council's time, it would save employees' time, and that time could be spent on other projects. I mean, it kind of feels like going to a football game. You've got your tickets in the mail, you've already ordered them, you go to the game, you hand your ticket, they give you another ticket, tell you to go back out, get to the back of the line, because you got to come back in with a new ticket for that day. I mean, that's what it seems like. We've already approved it, we've already allocated the money, it's coming in under budget. I mean, we've approved every single one of them that comes back before us, like 5 years of
I
been
think
here.
another reason was that, though, you don't ever know what's going to happen with the budget, or during the budget year. It may be budgeted, but then you decide you don't want to make a major purchase because you didn't collect enough taxes as you thought you would. I mean, I said this at the last meeting, we're living a time where we're in increasing tax revenues every single year. Trust me, it's not going to go on forever. Fairhope, Alabama is going to hit a time where our revenues do not meet projections, and then all these things that have been approved, we're not going to have the money to buy them.
And
It's going to happen one day.
You know, and you can undo this. So at this time where we are, I believe in fluency. I believe in being malleable. You know, we want to make sure that, you know, that as council, we take empathy and consideration of the people that are out there doing this particular work, and we want to listen to y'all and hear you heartfeltly. So, and knowing that we can undo it when this time passes is always, you know, something that I feel more comfortable with, you know.
Councilman Biggs?
What do you say, Boone?
Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm in this same business, and I have thought for years, over this past year, exactly how does Fairhope do it? Because if I don't have the opportunity to buy it, like right now, as in, I not only have to buy it, I have to get it and give them a deposit to get it, so that they will at least hold it to ship it to me. And with the rules and regulations that we have, I was trying to figure out how in the world Fairhope is doing. I thought they've done a masterful job in getting what they have done under what I call the time restrictions that we're having to wait, because I couldn't do it. There's no way I could do it. So I feel these changes are going to be needed. And I have found that in the city, everything we do, pretty much everything we do, because we don't have crystal balls, it's our best guess, best estimate of what we can do to make better efficiency. But everything's a work in progress.
Yeah.
You know, we work on it. This works. We may need to tweak it a little bit here, tweak it a little bit there, but changes have to be made. There's no way around it. Changes have to be made in order to get these purchases in here. And I feel strongly in order to save the city money. I think in the overall, we're going to save more money than we're going to cost.
In this time.
I do understand, Jack.
No, I'm just saying.
I understand exactly
that
what you're saying.
just because we
and
do
how
it now
works,
doesn't mean it won't have to change back. That's
No,
all
that's
I'm
what I'm
saying.
saying. These changes,
So 10 years
because-
from now, they can't say they didn't tell you so.
Right, because of the times, these changes do have to be made, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've
I couldn't do it.
been at another government that it was 2008, 2009, and, you know,
Yes.
same thing. And same thing, we put hiring freezes down, purchasing. You had to really just come back to justify
Right.
that. So, you know, we've all here, probably in this room, experienced that time period to know that that could come around where you start seeing those revenues go down. And as finance, you'd come down and say, we have to slow this down, stop this, and is that necessary? And at that point, it may be that it would come back to the council to say, okay, you've got to justify. I mean, I was in a world that if you lost an employee, God help you, because you couldn't fill it. So,
And let's pray we don't go through that for a
I know.
long, long time. I'm just saying the what ifs.
Yeah.
We just have to debate the possibilities. That's all.
That's
Don't
why we're
take it
talking
as,
about it.
yeah, that's why we talk about it.
yeah, and it's a policy that can be adjusted however y'all is pleased y'all to do.
Yeah.
And would you want to see that report, Councilman Martin? Would you want to see that every other month, every 3 months?
Yeah, you know, that was just trying to be a win-win. It was a
Well, no,
solution,
we
throwing it
wanna
out,
put
see
it
if
in
it
the
sticks.
policy, so-
Yeah, and so, yeah,
Okay.
you know, it will, I guess as.
I'd
we can-
propose bi-monthly.
That's what,
Bi-monthly?
it wouldn't be me, it would be so what these guys think, it was
It would
just.
be purchases over $5,000, and we'll give you the budgeted amount, what it was purchased at, and
Just,
what
and
the
then
item
Excel
was.
And also on that report needs to be any unbudgeted item.
Oh, yeah, right.
Any
Right,
unbudgeted
right,
item.
Right.
Well, we still have the unbudgeted items
So the-
on here. So
Yes.
unbudgeted items for general is still staying the same. It's
So
utilities.
It's
that
only
would come through
utilities
us.
that's
I've
changing.
always wanted to see
Yeah.
that, though. I've always wanted to see whatever that unbudgeted items were. Like I said, because if it's unbudgeted and it's below a threshold, you know, I used to call it 8 years ago, $14,999 us to death.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what we've done, you know, this year is if somebody has something unbudgeted, we're asking, well, tell us where you're gonna get that money from? What are you giving up? And so, you know, I have a department that it's gonna come on the should come on the next one, is that they have a vehicle that's not gonna come in this year, but they forgot to order some equipment for another vehicle, and I'm like, that still has to come to the council, because you didn't budget it here, but you wanna use money out of this other one. You know, you can't do
Robbing
it.
Peter to pay Paul.
That's right, and
Yeah.
so that would be, that's still the same thing, if they have a piece of equipment that they didn't budget for, but they think they're going, that was unbudgeted.
Thank you.
That's
You know.
why I need to know what you want, because this is Kim's Bible.
Yeah.
And quite often, all of us run to her with it in
Yeah,
our hand and
quarterly
say,
or
tell us what
bi-monthly,
we can
quarterly,
do.
I mean,
Yes, this is, this
Quarterly.
is
I mean, it's not a
stays
good
on the
idea.
little
That's
leaf
good.
of my
It's the Bible.
desk,
That's fine.
that if something
Bi-monthly.
comes up,
Bi-monthly
I
report,
still
yeah.
like, okay, let's look at this. I have my budget book right there that I pull out, and I'm like, okay, is it budgeted? You
Yeah.
know, and we're checking off, okay, are we purchasing this? We're checking it off. So y'all put trust in me, and I'm trying to do my
yeah.
job.
Yeah, we trust you. I just, you know, trying to make everybody win-win here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Jeremy,
Real quick.
come on,
I
man.
know that where we struggle in the gas department is the inventory items.
Did we say that again?
The inventory items,
Okay.
because the quotes we get are only good for 10 to 14 days. So when we're ordering gas pipe, when we're ordering, yeah, maybe, you know, sometimes they're good for just 4 or 5 days. So in particular, the gas meters that y'all approved 2 weeks ago, you know, the price was only good for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Well, by the time we got the purchase request in, Lisa got on the city council, we came to y'all, we ended up purchasing 700 gas meters for the same price we could have got 800 gas meters for. So the pipe's the same thing, you know, so when they give us a price on pipe, and it's inventory, you know, we have to buy gas pipe, the price is only good for a couple of days. Well, it takes us 2 or 3 weeks before we can get it to the council. Then by the time we purchase it, the price is increased, you know, then we're coming back to y'all, or we're getting
And that
less
makes
pipe.
sense. That makes
So-
sense. You know, I've had that with other companies. That's a common thing with the limited quoting
Right.
offer.
So it's
you
not
know.
the fact that we won't get the prices early enough, it's the quotes aren't good, but a certain
That's
period. We're
exactly
still
right.
getting 3 or 4 quotes, but they're only good for a certain amount of time.
Right.
Now, when that happens with those gas meters, for instance, are we passing that cost on to the customer? So essentially, that price went up 12.5%.
Correct.
So we're selling that meter for what we have into it, or is that something we just have to provide with a new service?
That's
And so
something that
we-
we're gonna go back and look at all of our fees, because we just talked about that in our, because we
I
need to
hate
be
do
passed,
it,
no,
yeah,
but we
if-
need to be
if
passing
our
along
fees
those
were,
costs.
you know, even what we did a year or two ago,
They're not
and
any
our
good
expenses
anymore.
have gone through the roof in the
The
last.
gas
correct.
meters, a couple of years ago, were $75, now they're $115.
Wow.
So
100%.
in 2.5 years, they went from $75 to $115.
Well, yeah, if you guys want to come back to the council in a work session, talk about things like that, Mayor, I
The
mean, that
fees.
definitely.
We've talked about that already. We have to, unfortunately.
Any other
Right,
comments?
and like Clint said, the lead times are changing, you know, where, you know, if you don't order it today, it might be 5, 6 weeks before you know, so
Get it in.
everything just, the 2 weeks of getting it, 3 weeks of getting it in front of y'all, when people are buying stuff right now, they're buying it off the shelf, like Kevin said, we can't move that fast, even if they're inventoried, it's gas meters, gas pipe, we're trying to move, we're begging them to hold the product. Can you please hold it for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
You know, it's inventory, we need it, and it does become a struggle.
And these are mostly, just to put it out there, these are other municipalities that are buying these particular items?
Correct.
They are.
Yeah, so,
And the
Other
other,
utility companies.
that's what I'm saying,
the
yeah.
other thing we talked about was like aid to construction. You know, we quote a developer a price for aid to construction, and then he might wait 6 months to start his project, and then you get there and they're like, well, this is the price you quoted me. Well, that price is changing. So we're talking about some forms and language on those forms that can say, you know, that we can pass through those costs, because, I mean, it's costing us more money than we're charging in aid to construction.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And the budget is tough, and everybody here, I think, does a great job, but we're getting prices a year in advance. You know, we got prices last June for stuff we're buying now. And the price is only good for 2 weeks now, and we were trying to budget last June for what we were gonna purchase today. You know, that is difficult. You know, trying to guess on what prices are gonna be, so you're not inflating your budget.
I
And
know
so
it's
it is
difficult.
tough doing it a year and a half in
Projections are tough.
advance, when you're purchasing it now, and the quote's only good for a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious to see, you know, as Councilman Burrell pointed out, we probably are gonna have a lot of items that put out in the bid, they're gonna come in over budget. I mean, we see that on the agenda as it is. So I'm curious to see how much of a savings this would be from time, but to me, just the redundancy of paperwork and people spending time putting together stuff that they've already done for the budget process, if we can free up just a little bit of time that can be spent elsewhere.
We did find we had a truck budget. Tim actually found it this December. Tim and Clint found it. We begged the people to hold the truck. Please hold it for us. By the time we did the purchasing request, presented it to y'all, did the PO, as soon as we got it from Nico, the truck was gone. And so that same truck that we had budgeted won't be here till August, September.
Did the price go up?
The price does.
Well, it was a state bid, so the
Only
price
marginal
didn't go
amount.
up.
It's whatever the market is, because on vehicles, it's not quite, it's not as volatile as that. They set the price.
Gotcha.
The state gets it, they do a bid price, whatever that price is, that's what it is.
Okay.
And they stick with that, but the problem is like Stivers, they're the Ford dealer. They called me and they told me that they were ordering trucks, and before, we would always order a truck, it would be specific to our order. Now, since they said that they had 2,500 trucks to order, and they had a period of time to order it, they didn't just wait and have a slot. They ordered trucks they thought the state would need, and that order's already done. Their trucks are ordered for the year. There's no, I want this particular truck. And in the instance for the truck, what had happened was say we had a truck for $26,000, and this budget, not to exceed the budget. What happened is we may have wanted to buy a truck for $26,000. That truck's no longer available. So then you have to find a truck that's gonna fit your budget. Before, we'd order a truck, it'd be right down to, you wanna, what type of lights you want on or whatever. Now, the trucks are already there, and if you don't get it, you're not gonna get it. And they order a basic truck at different levels, and that's what we're looking at right now. But I think eventually, I hope this is all over, and before we operated like this, it wasn't a problem.
It's not gonna be over anytime
But
soon,
if you
unfortunately.
didn't budget for a full drive truck, but that's the only thing available, right?
Right.
Is you're gonna exceed your budget, because you didn't
So,
budget
yeah,
for the full drive,
That's all
but that's
that's
the only
left.
thing available. It's kinda like the truck we missed out on. We won't get a truck till after September, when there was one available in December that was within our budget range, but we couldn't move fast enough to purchase that truck.
Got it.
Or trucks that you don't want four-wheel drive, but that's the only thing that's available. Or you budgeted extended cab, the only thing you can purchase is a four-door.
I got you.
Well, it's become such an issue. Some of the major companies, they're putting out publications, in-depth publications. I've got one here. I thought we were maybe gonna make copies of this, but this is done by one particular one, and it even shows, it's got graphs in there. It shows what the market is, and it shows what the market raw materials cost and so forth. Maybe Kim can get you a copy of that. This is just one. I've got multiple examples of that, and you got an idea, and they'll send us this and say, this is what we're facing, and that's why, because raw materials cost change, particularly on wire, transformers, they're just
Imports.
You know yourself, like cast iron's gone up, you wanna buy pipe, it's just, anything with fuel prices have changed dramatically. Polyethylene pipe, we had, the pipe we just got, the 6-inch pipe, we were lucky to get it. I just happened to know the guy and got him, asked him to do a favor and hold that pipe for me, because he had 4 other people that said they'd buy it. So,
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Council, how do y'all feel about this? Are you ready to put this on a agenda in the near future? Do you want to have further discussion about it? How's everybody's comfort level?
I feel pretty good about it without reporting.
Yeah, I'm good.
We put that reporting in there?
Yeah, with the, yeah.
Okay.
And I'll send you both policies again.
Yep. I did read it. I remember, I just thought I was gonna have it side by side here to look
Yeah.
at.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and you can
Yeah.
move forward with that, Mayor. Next item up.
Thanks, Clint.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Kim, I guess this is you as well, as the 6-month review of the budget. So this will hopefully shed some light on this train of thought. Whether we can afford to do this or not.
Okay, I gave y'all, so y'all have a paper copy of the slide, and I wanted just to kind of go, we'll start off with the first page of cash balances. I just wanted y'all to see increases in our cash balance. An example of just looking at general fund where you can see the significant increase. We had Hurricane Sally, and so at the point of March 31st, we had spent on debris right at $10 million, and so we got that money. We had a line of credit. I paid the line of credit off. So that's where you can see revenues were starting to come in really good last year at this time, but we also have this year, our revenues are coming in really good, and I'll go over some other slides with that. But you can just see where our cash balances are pretty healthy right now. Just to start off, just to talk about sales tax, last year our increase in sales tax was 14.6%, and at 6 months into this year, they're at 16.1 increase. The simplified seller's use tax, known as Amazon tax, was increased last year, at the end of last year was 38.9%, and ending at the 6 months period is at up 60%, 60.8%. Lodging tax, which y'all know, lodging tax had a real hit due to COVID, but last year our increase was 42%, and at 6 months our lodging tax is up 56.9%. And I just want to show some of the slides that you can see, which y'all got these in packets too, but where you can kind of see where our sales tax is running. In a normal, and I've seen this for the probably 10, 15 years I've been looking at sales tax numbers. You'll always see that March come down, and then you'll start to see it come up for the summer months. But you'll have that little dip from the year and then back up. And you can really see where COVID hit the big decrease of the 20s numbers, where it went and had a big decrease. And then last year's, you can see where those charts started going up. Simplified seller's use tax on that chart, you can just see it's, that's a lot of it's more people are just buying online. And the state had, like right now, eBay, you pay sales tax on eBay. Anybody that's a marketplace facilitator. So last year they started having to collect sales tax. So the state is doing a really good job of including more and more online businesses. So that's the reason you start seeing this number increase. Lodging tax, this is where you can really see that green line was COVID, and you can see in May where it just did a huge dip, and we struggled. And then you can see the dark blue line where we came out of that. People started traveling and staying in hotels. That you could see the increase, and then this year we're doing very well. Looking at our revenues, I did these charts based on a percentage of what we have left to collect, what's remaining on the budget. On sales, on property tax, we collect majority of that through March, and then usually in May, Revenue Commissioner has the tax sale for any properties that hadn't sold or hadn't been paid their taxes. But the other piece that's in there is the automobile tax that comes throughout the year. So, but we're still doing good on the collections. You can see local tax, and that's going to go over the lodging tax, that's liquor tax. So we're doing good. We've collected 51. Well, we have 51% left to remain to collect. And just remember on our sales tax, our bigger months is at the end of our year of doing those collections. License and permits. We've almost collected our whole budget for that category. And when I looked at it, we collected over 100,000 more in business license than what we budgeted. So that was huge there, what I could see. If we look at building permits is way up, and so they've almost collected what we budgeted for the year in a 6-month period. So we're doing well on those numbers. Then I wanted to be able to highlight some others. Recreation. So recreation, you can see that we've collected all but about 29% of what we budgeted in the first 6 months. And, y'all can tell, and, that's going to be from your rec center. So you can tell things are doing well. At your Fairhope docks, Ms. Burrell, you could probably tell on that, that's more on the fuel, and people are going to buy more fuel in the summer months, so those revenues will come in greater at the 7 months, the last 6 months. Golf is doing very well on their revenues. Their first 6 months of how much they've collected for their revenues. So in total, we've collected, what we've got left of our budget is 34% of our revenues based on what we budgeted. Do y'all have any questions for any of those?
And just, I want to just point out that, of course, we only have 34.7% remaining, but, property tax is a huge part of that, so we won't, we only have 8% left of that. And on the recreation, and it's a very small number in comparison to some of the others, but is that maybe, is it at 95% of budget because maybe people pay an annual fee up front early in the year? Could it be that, or is it something else?
It could be that.
I think that, and also, I think your bill use is also up. That's going to be a small.
Oh, yeah, that could be some of it. Yeah, okay.
Adult recreation, yeah, okay.
And the same thing on golf, you have them to pay their fees up front, their annual fees on the
Yeah.
golf, so.
Okay.
But when I compare it, looking at where we were last year, this year, we're up some,
Yeah.
Well, we're definitely up at the 6-month point. We're up a lot, really, at the 6-month point, but I think to Councilman Burrell's earlier comment, you have a great revenue year, you don't want to necessarily build the budget based on 100% of what we did in a really good year for revenue for next year's budget.
yes. And I'll give you an example of something I looked at, just reviewing, is like for our sales tax, what we collected in '21 is equal to what we budgeted this year. So, when you're trying to finish the budget up and you haven't got all your numbers for the year, because we haven't finished the year, but we're doing our budget. But when we budgeted sales tax numbers for this year, it came in the same as what we ended the last year. So, thought we did really conservative on our budget. Any more questions on this page? Next, just a summary of where general fund is at this point. Last year, we had expenses for the cleanup of Salaries, so that's the reason last year we were in such a loss at this point. Right now, of course, we've collected a lot of our revenues, but our expenses, we're, at a 6 months, we're where I think we should be, when you're trying to look around 50%. We still have a lot of capital we haven't done, but, I feel comfortable with where we are right now.
Kim, do these numbers, they do include the repayment of the short-term loan that we had for the Hurricane Sally expenses?
Yes,
And we're probably going to get some more revenues from that, aren't we? Because we're going to get an additional percentage of that claim?
We should get additional percentage. I still haven't got anything official, so we don't have anything official in there. But, yeah, in last year's numbers, when we ended '21, we had already paid off that debt.
Oh, it was
yeah.
prior to October?
Yes.
I couldn't remember. Okay.
Yes, I made sure that was taken care of. When
Okay.
we got that money, is to turn around and pay it right back, to pay that line off.
There's still the other 12% still should come in.
Yep.
We have a 12%
Mhm. And here, I don't know if you want me to go through some of these numbers, but just looking at the percentages in each department, you can see where they're running, 50% or greater. The judicial department, well, we get to salaries, I can explain what I can tell what's going on with judicial. Do you have any questions on any of these? They, I just feel like as we are moving at a 6-month mark, we are still, 50%. We're staying in that range. That looks good.
How much of the general fund expenses would you say are related, all these items, except for that one category, are ahead of budget, but how much of that's a function of the challenges with supply chain, just getting stuff that we're trying to buy?
We have some of that, and then some projects, I have a slide on the capital
Okay.
in here.
I'll wait till you get there.
Yeah, so I didn't know if there was any, on the next page, I've got the marina. Marina is, that's price of fuel. I mean, that's what we're dealing with at the marina is price of fuel. That's real obvious on that one.
Got a lot of debt services out there.
The debt service that you see there, we make that payment in June.
Okay.
Yeah. We make that, that's a payment that goes to Baldwin County Board of Education for the K-1 Center payment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So as a total for general fund, we're, total expenses, we're at 58% left of our budget, so we're holding steady. And then, so this is the slide that I just want to give to show on vehicles and equipment, what we have budgeted. We still have a lot of equipment still to purchase. And it has to do with the supplies of when we placed an order for some of those vehicles. They're not due in until August, hopefully September. These vehicles will come in. Capital improvements, same thing. Some of the projects that we're working on, we're still going through with those projects. So those expenses are delayed. You have any questions there? This next one is where we are with salaries. And, some of the ones that you're seeing, planning, is filling positions. We're still struggling filling positions. Judicial and IT, they have some on-call pay that I think we were a little short on the budget on their on-call pay. So that's those two departments. That's where I can see some issues there. Was the overtime on-call pay. All the other ones seem, where a lot of it has to do with the filling positions. When you're filling positions, you're just not spending that money. But in total, salaries compared to budget, we're at 58% left remaining of our budget. Do you have any questions on those? Then utilities. So I just tried doing summaries to kind of see where we are. For the gas department, we're up in our revenues. A lot of that was the price of the usage, cold winter, but then also in the expense. I think we're doing good, but we still, our cost of our energy was up some too. And then if you look down there at capital, you can still see that we've ordered vehicles. The example that Jeremy gave, we're waiting on those vehicles to come in. And then on the capital improvements of theirs, we haven't, I went back and looked, they had in their budget was a gate station meter upgrade, $70,000. Engineering for cast iron replacement was $1 million. So these things, y'all hasn't come back to y'all. So those, we still have more work to be done on the gas department.
That's been anyway.
Yes, and I've got a note here for Church Street project that is shared among all the utilities. We still have $3.2 million left on that project to spend or owed. So that has not hit the books yet, so you'll see that. And then electric, where, compared to last year, our revenues are staying where it is. Again, electric's going to be one that your revenues are going to be higher in your summer months. So when you start to look at that, you can't look at these utilities, they kind of, you have to look at the seasons of how the money's coming in. And then their expenses, we're setting good, but there's capital, as you can see down at the bottom of the slide, you can see on capital that has not been spent, it has not been paid by the first 6 months. And I've got on here, like, for the improvements for the substations, we still have $1.2 million out there. We have $900,000 that's for the distribution and the additions for the lines and the improvements. So those are things that are in progress. Y'all approved these contracts, but, it just hasn't been completed.
So let me be clear on this, Kim, so the difference in our net income being less than it was in the 6 months ended 2021 is due to the additional capital upgrades that we're making and not due to rising fuel costs in the electric department. I mean, are we passing those costs through to the customer?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, on our fuel adjustment? Okay.
Yes. Yes, we are. Y'all have any more questions on this one? And here's the water department. I think our revenue, I look at it, is just really flat compared to last year at this time. I did want to note on the budget, I had budgeted a $5 million line of credit for some of the capital improvements. I have not put that out for bid because if you go back to your cash, we still have cash in the bank to do these projects. But for budget, there was $5 million that was in there. So it kind of distorts looking at comparing our budget to our revenue. And then expenses, the same thing. We haven't done what was capitalized, what was to be capitalized. I'll just give you some examples of the projects that we have out. Well number 11, development, that's $861,000. That's in progress. We have lift station force main improvements, engineering of $122 left to spend. We have headwork design and treatment needs, that was with an engineer, that was $24,000. Valley lift station, that's $247,000. We've got Dewberry that's overseeing the project that has to do with a design. It was for phase 2 sewer lines to go down, and it was wastewater collection and transmission system. So Dewberry is 102, and then boring is going to be almost 1.3 million for that project, and that's happening now. And then we have left on a contract with, that's the sewer repair and bypass connection. That's our on-call contractor, and we have got $300,000 left on that. So we have a lot going on, and the water, that's water and sewer projects that we've got going on. Do you have any questions on those? Wastewater, I noted the same thing because I had put $5 million a line of credit for water and then $5 million line of credit for wastewater, and same thing, we're just using the cash we have currently. And then the expenses, we haven't completed our capital projects, so but in total you're seeing that we do have a loss there. Our revenues in wastewater are up. But, our expenses, we're still got our capital to spend. Do you have any questions on those? We'll do sanitation. So the last, this year, we moved sanitation to their own fund, to treat their expense, their revenues and their expenses instead of it was me. It was in the general fund. So you can see, we did a rate increase, so you can see compared to last year to this year at the same period, you can see that the rate increase in the revenues, and that then the expenses, when we look at it, our expenses is staying, where it should be, but fuel is an issue. Sanitation does use more fuel than most departments as a total, and they've already right now they have about 30% left of their fuel budget. And that's just because of the price of fuel that has happened over this past year. We increased in the budget, but we weren't counting on what's going to happen in March. So those are things that they're having to watch all their expenses to, make sure that we're covering for those fuels. And then they had some big equipment purchased, that was budgeted this year, and we're still waiting on, I believe, another truck and the dozer. Yeah, those were the two big pieces of equipment that still hasn't come in for sanitation. So that was the overview that I wanted to be able to do here. You do have with you is the detail, over 40 pages of financials. And I just wanted to give an overview. And if you have questions later after you look through details, please come see me. I just wanted to make sure y'all just had a good overview of where we are at a 6-month period.
Thank you very much. Council, do y'all have any questions for Kim?
Yeah, one quick question. So on the back page, there was a number on salaries. Are
Yeah,
those
sorry.
expenses included in the other numbers that you presented for each of the utilities?
They're included in the totals
They
for
were in the
utility
total
expenses.
expenses, okay.
I just, for general, let's just for general fund, usually your salaries is your big numbers.
Right.
And so I broke the general fund out separate, and then I just put utilities on a separate sheet, so you can kind of see where we are at a 6-month period, where we are compared to our salaries. And again, what I see and what I hear, is filling positions, when you have that delay.
No, it's good. I just want to make sure it was in the overall expenses number.
It is, it's in the overall expenses. I just wanted to highlight salaries
Great.
for y'all.
No, thank you.
That's good.
Any other questions?
Got room to hire people.
Thank
Well,
you,
it's,
Kim.
it's tough, and I'll give you an example. For a staff accountant position, we had it posted for 2 weeks, and I had 3 postings. And we kept it open longer, and I had them to post it in Indeed. I reached out to another government and said, hey, do you know anything about staff accountants? Are y'all having trouble? And they were like, yes. And I'm like, I'm thinking these people that should be graduating any day now. But it's all these positions we're having trouble with. Mhm.
Well, thank you for the report and all the information. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Council, we're going to go ahead, if y'all are all right, we're going to skip committee updates, save that for the council meeting, and department head updates. We got about 5 minutes to just go through the agenda real quick, and then we'll take a break.
All right.
Let's see, the first item on the agenda, the Writer's Cottage, I think we've covered that. I feel like that's been on here 5 or 6 times.
Well, it was here, then we had to bring it back, amend it.
Yep.
So,
Let's see, the next item up is a site plan review and approval, and I see developers in the back, so that'll be Hunter. Next is resolution for roads at Long Pines Estates. Everything as it should be, I guess, with that. Richard, would that be you, or is that Mayor? Then we got a couple restore bucket items. Would that be Jessica? Would you be handling that, or Richard, Mayor? All right. Got the KV line. Is that Conrad?
I can cover that one
Cover
too.
that.
That was the change that we made in the KV line. I think y'all approved the engineering cost several meetings ago. That was $20,000. This is just that change we made going down Summit, rerouting that line, and this is the contractor. So additional supplies and stuff from that.
All right. The ICC. That is for Eric, I believe. Let's see, number 12. I guess Mayor Richard, I can handle that. Richard, all right. Okay, number 13 would be Jason. Is Jay? All right. Let's see. All All right, then, the Home Sweet Home, who's handling that? Jessica, are you doing that one? Eric's doing Home Sweet Home, okay. Sorry. Wellness Incentive Program. Mayor Kim? Okay. All right, the Working Waterfront Green Space Project, that is Jessica. And Marcus. Then we've got appointment to Harbor Board, Rec Board, and for Rotary Club. We also, it sounds like we are going to be scratching executive session.
Yep.
We're gonna be able to pull that tonight, and then we're gonna have 3 resolutions to add. So if y'all wanna take a 5-minute break, we'll come back and get started with the meeting.